Danny again. We're back in the feed room. For those who don't know me, I'm Hope Haven's equine manager, horse trainer, and instructor. And I think most of you should have seen our previous feed room video. So today we're going to go through actually how we scoop grain and how I formulate each horse's diet. So we'll kind of talk about that as I show you how to scoop their grain. So if we want to go over to the feed board, we're going to start with Mr. Abe. So right now it's breakfast time and he's already had his 2 flakes of hay. So now we're going to scoop his 2 cups of equalizer. And for Abe, so as I mentioned last time, each horse gets about 2% of their body weight in hay. So for Abe, that works out to about 5 flakes of hay per day. Because each flake is roughly 6 pounds, give or take. And this year, our hay is really, really low in digestible energy, which means really low in calories. So some of our horses we've had to put on grain, but for a horse like Abe, who doesn't need a lot of extra calories, it's actually been the perfect kind of hay for him to have. So we are able to feed him more hay so that he's able to forage and chew more throughout the day, which is really good for horses, but without him actually getting more calories and more energy than he needs from it. So since he's getting all the calories and energy he needs from the amount of hay he's getting, which we talked about as being 5 flakes of hay a day, we're only going to put him on 2 cups of equalizer, which from our last video we talked about as that being a ration balancer or a mineral supplement. So basically what equalizer does, it's just a really concentrated form of all the vitamins and minerals that a horse needs. So what we're going to do is we're going to give Abe 2 cups of equalizer. So I'm going to grab my feed bin, and we feed all of our horses out of these little feed tubs. So we have about 22 of them, 1 for each horse. Then for equalizer, it's way back in our corner here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our Purina cup. It's a little dirty so you can't see the numbers on it, but one of these is exactly 1 cup, like what you would use for baking or measuring flour. So we're going to take our equalizer and fill our cup right to the top. You could probably zoom right in. And we're going to put 1 cup in and 2 cups in. So Abe's finished breakfast looks just like this, 2 cups of equalizer. And we'll kind of see, we're going to feed 3 different horses today, so we'll see 3 different feeding methods, but that's how we do Abe's breakfast. I'm just going to put the lid on our equalizer and keep it nice and fresh. Alright, next up is Miss Arwen, so we can head back to the feed board. So Arwen, she is one of our skinnier horses, so she needs more calories and more energy from her grain. So like I said, it's breakfast time and she's already got her 4 flakes of hay. And throughout the day, she's going to get 4 plus 4 is 8, plus another 3 is 11. She gets 11 flakes of hay every day. And then on top of her 11 flakes of hay, for breakfast, she's going to get 1 cup of equalizer and 4 cups of senior. And then because she's an older horse with not the best teeth, we're going to soak it into kind of an oatmeal consistency so she can eat it better. So what's different between Abe and Arwen, so because she's on senior feed, that's what's called a fortified feed. So it has a lot of vitamins and minerals in it already. So Abe gets 2 cups of equalizer to meet his vitamin and mineral needs. But Arwen only gets 1 cup, even though she's bigger, because she gets a good amount of senior feed, which has vitamins and minerals in it as well. So we don't want to give her too much vitamins and minerals, because then she just pees it out and it's a waste of them. So she gets 1 cup of equalizer and then the 4 cups of senior feed. So senior feed is a really low sugar, fairly high energy feed. So that means that's going to give Arwen a lot of calories but not a lot of sugar so that her body can digest it easily and absorb all that nutrients effectively. So I'll show you what that looks like to scoop her feed. So we're going to grab 1 more bucket just like we did for Abe. So first, we're going to grab our 1 cup of equalizer and put it in our bucket just like that. Then we need to go all the way over here for our senior feed. There's part of a feed bag in it. So Arwen gets 4 cups of senior. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, and you'll notice it has lots of different little kinds of pellets in it. There's 2 different kinds. So there's this one that looks like equalizer, but it has some molasses on it. And then there's these pellets, which is the fortified part of the feed. So that adds a little bit of extra energy and then a little bit of extra vitamins and minerals in there, which is why she only needs 1 cup of equalizer. So then we're going to turn on the warm water so that we can soak it and make a mash out of it. We're just going to make sure our water's warm first. There we go. And we soak it all down, just like that. I'm just going to shake it around a little bit, make sure it all gets coated. And then by the time this gets to Arwen, the grain is going to have absorbed the water and it's going to look basically just like oatmeal. And then we'll set it on top of Abe's. And then the last horse's grain that we're going to scoop today is going to be O'Malley, because I want to show you 3 different sort of amounts of grain that a horse can get. So next up is O'Malley. So he gets the same amount of hay as Arwen does. He gets 11 flakes of hay per day. And he is not the same age as Arwen. He's quite a bit younger than Arwen, but he works very hard throughout the week. So he needs a lot of calories because he burns a lot of them off. And he is also a thoroughbred, which is the type of breed that he is. And that type of breed has a very high metabolism. So that means even if he just stands still all day, he still burns a lot of calories. I wish that was true for me. So basically, because of that, we need to make sure that he is getting the right amount of calories so that even when he's not working, he's still maintaining his weight. And then because on top of that, when he is working quite hard, he's not going to lose weight on us. So what we're going to do is O'Malley gets 5 cups of Integrity and 8 cups of beet pulp per grain. And then we'll talk about his supplements in a second. He also gets his grain soaked, but that's because beet pulp and Integrity are 2 types of forages that will expand when water's added to them. So if we fed them to the horses dry, they would expand in their stomach, and that's not very good for them. So we soak them ahead of time so they're already done expanding by the time the horses get them. So to scoop O'Malley's grain, we are going to go back into our corner and start with Integrity. And just like senior feed, Integrity is a fortified feed. So it has added vitamins and minerals. So we're not going to give O'Malley any equalizer. He is on a vitamin and mineral supplement as well, which we'll talk about when we get there. But for him, because he's on so much Integrity, we don't need to give him equalizer. So he's on 5 cups of equalizer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll put our lid back on so it stays nice and fresh. And then we're going to sneak this way. So I can get the lid off. There we go. And put it over here. And he's on 8 cups of beet pulp. So beet pulp, it's not actually a grain at all. It's very flaky and very fibrous, but basically it's from the sugar beet plant. It's all dehydrated, and it's the leafy fibrous part of the sugar beet plant. So it's essentially like feeding the horses hay, but it's a more sort of condensed version. So they can eat less of it, but get more energy from it. Like I said earlier, our hay doesn't have a lot of calories in it. So feeding O'Malley beet pulp is giving him more forage, but since our hay doesn't have enough calories in it, it doesn't make sense to feed him more hay because he's already eating 2% of his body weight in hay. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's our 8 cups of beet pulp. And we feed a lot of beet pulp versus grain because beet pulp is really, really light. So even though it looks like a lot, he's getting about the same amount of beet pulp as he is integrity, but integrity is a lot more condensed. So it looks, even though he's getting more beet pulp, it looks like he's getting sort of, it works out to the same amount, if that makes sense. So we're now going to add his supplements before we soak it. So we talked about that vitamin and mineral balancer supplement. So this is what Omnidi looks like. I'll take the lid right off. Maybe. So this is what the Omnidi supplement looks like, and it is basically the only thing in here is vitamins and minerals. So this is a much more condensed version than Equalizer. Because O'Malley already eats so much food, I don't want to feed him too much grain, so I feed him this more condensed version. So that I know he's going to be able to eat all the nutrients without feeling like he has too much food. And then next up is salt for O'Malley. So he gets half a scoop of salt. And this basically just makes sure he's drinking enough water every day. Since he works so hard and sweats a lot, I want to make sure he's drinking lots of water to keep him hydrated. Just like after you eat popcorn, you kind of feel like you want to drink. This is basically what adding salt to O'Malley's diet does. And then we're going to give O'Malley 60 milliliters of oil. Now normally you would take something that measures out 60 milliliters for you so that you can dump it into his grain. I've been giving him this amount of oil for quite a while so I can eyeball it. So we're just going to pour it straight on. That's about 60 milliliters. And then what we're going to do is we're going to soak it, because like I said, the integrity and the beet pulp are going to expand because they're a dried forage and all the water has been taken out of it. So when we add water back into it, it's going to expand a little bit. So our water's already warm. And we're going to add just about as much water as there is grain. And it's going to do the same thing as it did for Arwen to make it into sort of an oatmeal. There we go. So it looks kind of gross right now, but the time it gets to O'Malley, it'll look just like oatmeal. And then we're going to take O'Malley's grain. Before I set it on Arwen's, I'll show you what the soaked grain looks like. So you saw how much water we had on it earlier. It's not quite finished absorbing all of it, but this is kind of the consistency it turns into. So we've done Abe's and Arwen's, and then O'Malley's. So that's kind of what it looks like to feed 3 different types of horses. So Abe is a horse that doesn't need a lot of calories, but we need to make sure he has all of his vitamin and minerals requirements met. So he doesn't get a ton of hay. He gets just enough to meet that 2% of his body weight, and then he gets 2 cups of Equalizer to get those vitamin and minerals in. And then Arwen, she's a horse that needs a lot of extra calories, so she gets 2% of her body weight in hay. Because she's heavier than Abe, that means she gets more hay. And then to meet her vitamin and mineral needs, she gets 1 cup of Equalizer. Because of that Fortified Feed, she doesn't need quite as much. And then 4 cups of Senior in the morning. And then we'll see on our feed board, because that's not quite enough energy for Arwen to just have 4 cups of Senior and 1 cup of Equalizer in the morning. She also gets 2 cups of Integrity and 2 cups of Senior in the evening. We're actually going to switch it so that she's getting 4 cups of Senior in the evening, because Senior has a little bit more calories than Integrity. So eventually Arwen's diet is going to look like 1 cup of Equalizer and 4 cups of Senior in the morning, and then 4 cups of Senior at night for dinner, along with her hay for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then for O'Malley, like we said, he gets those 5 cups Integrity, 8 cups beet pulp, and all of his supplements, and that's all soaked, and he gets that morning and night. And that just makes sure he has all the energy He needs to be able to work hard and do his job, and then also all the vitamins and minerals he needs to make sure he stays happy and healthy, and then the salt to keep him hydrated. Do you have any questions, Shannon, before we wrap up?
Not any questions, but maybe what do you think about putting all 3 grain bins beside each other to see fully how much Abe gets in comparison to O'Malley?
Sure. All right. So we'll go biggest to smallest.
You can see that it's super heavy.
Yes. So O'Malley's, and then Arwen's, and then Abe's.
Quite the difference.
All right, just to wrap up our how to feed a horse video, we're going to go over how we formulate each horse's diet. So we'll go over Arwen's because I had to reformulate hers the most recently. But basically how it works is we take each horse and we find out how much each horse weighs. So for Arwen, she weighs about 1,200 pounds. So what we do, we take that 1,200 pounds and we find 2% of it. I can't think of what that is off the top of my head right now, but that worked out to her getting about 11 flakes of hay per day because we want each horse to get 2% of their body weight in hay per day. If they're a fjord and they're naturally a little chunkier, then what we're going to do is we can get away with feeding them about 1.5% of their body weight in hay per day if our hay had really high calories. But this year, since it's really low in calories, we can feed them 2% of their body weight in hay per day without having to worry about them getting too much energy. So we're going to feed Arwen 2% of her body weight in hay per day, and that works out to 11 flakes of hay. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to add equalizer to her diet to make sure she's going to get all her vitamins and minerals, because our hay isn't always going to cover that. So we get our hay tested every year, and based on that hay analysis, we can figure out where they're missing nutrients from the hay. So we add equalizer to balance that out, and then we look at what their body condition looks like. So if they're eating 2% of their body weight in hay per day and their equalizer, and they look happy and healthy, they're at about a body condition score of 5, like we talked about in our last video, then we're just going to leave them at hay and equalizer because they don't need any more energy or calories. But for a horse like Arwen, who can't maintain her weight just on hay alone because there's not enough energy or calories in there, we're going to add a fortified grain on top of it. So that would be like not equalizer, that would be like Integrity or Senior, or another feed we talked about last video, but not this video, would be Trimax. So that's going to add energy to her diet, or calories. So for Arwen, because she's older than 15 years of age, we're going to put her on Senior because that feed was designed for horses that are older to provide them with enough calories but not a lot of sugar. So then we start adding Senior feed. To change a horse's diet, we do it about 1 cup difference per day. So if we're adding grain, we're going to do 1 cup more each day than we did the day before, or if we're taking grain away, we would do 1 cup less than we did the day before. So for Arwen, she used to be on just equalizer and hay over the summer because she was on grass, which gave her the extra energy and calories. But now with the winter, she's no longer on grass, so we have to make up those calories somewhere else. So what we did was we added about 4 cups of Senior feed to her breakfast and 4 cups of Senior feed to her dinner. And that's sort of where we started her to get some calories added back into her diet when she started losing weight. So a horse can kind of safely get about 16 cups of Senior feed in one day safely. If we needed to give her more than 16 cups, then we would have to switch to a grain that was sort of higher in calorie, so she wouldn't have to eat so much grain. So right now she's on 8 cups of grain a day, so that's about half of what would be the max. So that's a fairly safe place to start to get her gaining weight without sort of going over the top. If we had put her on 8 cups of Senior feed and she wasn't gaining weight, then we would increase from there. But we started at 8 cups a day and then sort of look to see if that makes the changes we want to see. And so far it is. So that's where we're going to keep her until she's at a better weight, and she's almost there, probably about another week or two of being on 8 cups of senior a day. Then we'll be able to cut her back to more of a maintenance ration. And yeah, that's basically how you would formulate your horse's diet. Was you start with a 2% per day body weight in hay, and then you add the ration balancer on top to meet their mineral and vitamin needs. And then looking at their body condition score, you look to see if they're overweight, underweight, or just the right weight. Then you can add or take away grain and supplements based on that. All right, I think we're good.